Greetings, my friends. This is Celeria Rosenkreutz, and I ask you to allow me to tell you a story. Now, we ought to start out with this. The Quran initially suggests in Surah 262 that, indeed, Jews will have their reward with their Lord, and there will be no fear for them, nor will they grieve. And Surah 2:122 follows this up by saying, O children of Israel, remember my favor which I have bestowed upon you, and that I preferred you over the worlds. Notice that initially Allah seems totally fine with the Israelites, though it does ominously say in the next verse that immediately follows, and guard yourself against the day when no soul will be of any help to another. No ransom will be taken, no intercession accepted, and no help will be given, suggesting he is already ready to put them on notice. Additionally, 124 warns, remember when Abraham was tested by his Lord with certain commandments which he fulfilled. Allah said, I will certainly make you into a role model for your people. Abraham asked, what about my offspring? Allah replied, my covenant is not extended to the wrongdoers. With this we can see that just after Muhammad arrived in Medina, the Jews were on thin ice. This, you might say, acted to foreshadow the possibility that Allah might revoke the Jewish status as his chosen people in its entirety, as if his multiple statements of how oft merciful he is are nothing at all, and do not apply to a stiff-necked people who might go too far. By the time we get to Surah 98:6, which is about halfway through the Medinan scriptures, we see the Quran saying, verily those who disbelieve in the religion of Islam, the Quran, and the Prophet Muhammad from amongst the people of the book, the Jews and the Christians, and the al-mushrikun, that is, idolaters, people who associate things and people to Allah, polytheists, will abide in the fire of hell. They are the worst of creatures. Now, on its face, this might seem understandable. It's saying that those who deny Muhammad is actually a prophet are denying the one true God, and thus are dooming themselves, which Muhammad is compelled to affirm in order to legitimize himself and his work. Very harsh, insulting to those who can't see or understand, but not totally unfair. At the same time, though, the declaration he would number those who he once treasured more than all the worlds of his creation amongst the worst of creatures creates a great tension in the narrative that the Quran and Allah are trying to tell. In fact, it points to a major problem that undermines the credibility of both and paints the character of Allah in a terrible light. You see, on the one hand, the Quran suggests in Surah 14:4 that Allah misleads whom he wills and guides whom he wills, and then clarifies in Surah 4:88 that he whom Allah has made to go astray, you will never find for him a way, making it absolutely clear that Allah controls individuals' paths through life, and will often twist them away from the truth, at least if you take the ayat above as truthful themselves. At the same time, you have this, the statement of Surah 4:46. Allah has cursed them for their disbelief, so they believe not except a few. Which together point a picture of a cruel God that arbitrarily lashes out against those he supposedly valued above all else. Enough to give them, in fact, what he had never given to anyone in the world. Even more than this, you can take this willingness to turn the hearts of men and curse those who stubbornly refuse to follow his ways as directly responsible for the suffering and death of those who served him. For though the Quran says in 261, they invited the displeasure of Allah for rejecting Allah's signs and unjustly killing the prophets. One must remember the assertion of the previous passages. In the same way Allah can mislead whoever He wills, He can guide them. Surah 3:29 reads, "Say, O Prophet, whether you conceal what is in your heart or reveal it, it is known to Allah, for He knows whatever is in the heavens and whatever is on earth. And Allah is most capable of everything." The meaning of this is that He supposedly has exactly the sort of knowledge and power required to have led the Jews to wholehearted belief and unparalleled success on the face of the earth. Yet instead they are cursed, and in Surah 9, which is the second to last chronologically, we see Muhammad declaring, "The Jews say Ezra, Uzair, is the son of Allah. May Allah condemn," or otherwise translated, destroy them. How can they be so deluded from the truth? This is not only deeply ironic insofar as it is some of the furthest from the truth that the Quran ever gets, but much more seriously represents a universal accusation that proclaims the Jews, as a people, commit a sin that can never be forgiven. Now, it might seem that this indicates a clear lack of understanding for how the Jews think, even by the time of the second to last surah. However, I would argue that this is likely not the case. In context, this follows immediately after Surah 9:29, where the followers of Muhammad are given a universal command to fight those who do not convert to Islam or wholeheartedly submit to the Muslims and pay far greater taxes than any normal citizen. For their protection, of course. It also proceeds almost immediately before Surah 9:36-38, in which the Quran gives permission to fight the disbelievers in every month, declares that the disbelievers defile the natural order by not practicing Allah's divinely ordained holidays, adds that Allah makes evil pleasing in their sight, and assures the audience that He does not offer any guidance to disbelieving peoples. The Quran then mocks Muslims, saying they cling too much to life on the earth, and they should be willing to march forth and die for Him with the assurance pleasures in the afterlife will be much better than anything they have here. Why would Allah do this? Why would He take the Israelites as His chosen people, leading them from slavery to independence, only to have the Muslims that are supposedly servants of His final prophet see them as the worst of creatures and work to violently subjugate them? Is His love so feeble and fleeting a thing that His preference for the Israelites could fade away with time? Did He treasure them so much because He actually loved the prospect of seeing them and His servants suffer, pushed into a pit of rebellion and pain outside their will? We cannot know, yet it would seem that no answer could ever be good enough to excuse the malicious infidelity that Islam's holy text portrays their God as displaying. These cannot be taken as even the actions of one ignorant of what He is doing, for Allah is supposedly all-knowing, and there can be no possibility of innocence for such a being if they choose a path such as this. No. For the willful choice of betrayal, for abandoning those He said that He loved, the only rational conclusion one could draw is that either Allah, as portrayed in the Quran, never existed, and the inconsistency and faithlessness portrayed in Him is coming from Muhammad alone, or Allah is real and is a malicious, untrustworthy fiend that no one should ever worship. So do not